Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Congregation Kol Ami. So wonderful to have you here with us. So wonderful to see all of you here braving the rain here in Los Angeles, braving what is inclement weather around these parts. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for those of you joining us online. My name is Rabbi Ross Levy. I'm the assistant rabbi here at Kol Ami, and I am joined on the Biba tonight by our student rabbi Frankie Salzman, as well as our accompanist Lisa Edwards, and a huge thank you to Travis Smith in the back, surrounded by screens and wires, who is helping to make this all accessible and possible for us. So this evening, we come to Shabbat yet again, and we are taught that even though we come to expect Shabbat each and every week, that there's still something new and fresh about it. There's still new things to be gained. And so as we celebrate being together and welcoming one another, we will turn to page 648 in your prayer book in Mishkan Tefillah, as we join together in Shir Chadash, a new song.
Sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai. Let's do that one more time. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
It is my pleasure to invite up Ira Schlesinger to lead us in lighting our Shabbat candles, first with a reading that can be found on page 121 in your Siddur.
And Ira will be lighting these candles in memory of his brother Stanley, whose yahrzeit we commemorate this evening.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen.
ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'adlik ner v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you who commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. And Ira, if you will lift the Kiddush cup, and we'll join together with you with Kiddush on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim. V'shabbat kodshecha be'ava uvratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat lechaim. Lechaim. Thanks so much, Ira. We will continue. We've brought in a little bit of the light of Shabbat, a little bit of the sweetness of Shabbat, and we've warmed up a little bit with our voices, and so wonderful to hear so many singers here in the sanctuary with us tonight. Hope you will continue to sing along. We'll now turn and formally welcome in the Sabbath bride, this embodied presence of Shabbat, as we turn to page 138 for L'chad Dodi. And we'll be doing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And just as a friendly reminder, when we arrive at the 9th verse, we'll invite us all to please rise and face the entrance as a way of symbolically welcoming in the presence of Shabbat. L'chad Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat lekabela. L'chad Dodi kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, hishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litzchila. L'chad Dodi likrat kala Shabbat nekabela. L'chad Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki im mekor ha'beracha. Lirosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. L'chad Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. L'chad Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki ba'orech umi uri, umi uri shirda Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Boi v'shalom atzeret bala, gam besimcha u'b'tzola, tochem ne'am segula, boi chala, boi chala. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Having welcomed in the presence of Shabbat, we now invite you to turn and welcome one another. If you see some new faces, feel free to introduce yourself and wish one another Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Congregation Kol Ami family that is joining us. Shabbat Shalom, Mom and Dad, and Ronnie if you're watching. Although I know you went to services elsewhere tonight, but we remain standing as we make our way back to our seats. As we make our way back to our seats, we remain standing and turn to page 146 for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. Lai lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai lai lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai. Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai.
You may be seated. And we'll continue with welcoming in the Shabbat evening by focusing on the evening half of that, by reading together the blessing for welcoming in the evening, Ma'ariv Aravim in the English on the bottom of 148 together.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name, ever-living God. May you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai,
who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Amen.
Continue with the Shema on page 152, and invite you to rise.
We rise once again. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Leolam Vaed. We are seated. Continue on the following page, page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom ha'levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta ba'am, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha b'derech, u'shochbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'ayu letotafot bein einecha. Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. This week we are in Parashat Ki Tisa, which tells the infamous story of the golden calf that the Israelites fashioned for themselves while waiting a bit impatiently at the foot of Mount Sinai for Moses to return. And as we shift and move towards our song of freedom, our song of redemption, I think that this story reminds us that freedom and liberation is not just something that is physical, but it's also something that is mental and spiritual as well. When we think about the Israelites, what their urge was to build this golden calf was they wanted a form of worship, a way of accessing spirituality that was familiar to them, that made sense. And what they knew was putting together an idol. It was a lot scarier and a more different thing to believe in this God that you couldn't see or necessarily touch, but that the entire nation of Israel felt and heard and saw. And so I want to encourage us to think about the type of liberation we might be looking for, the type of shackles or strictures that we have internalized, whether they've been placed on us from any outside forces or experiences we might have had as younger folks, or those that we've taken on ourselves, the strictures that we have internalized ourselves. And so with that in mind, we turn to page 158 for Mi Chamocha, our song of freedom, our song of redemption. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi Kamocha חירוtecha ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים זה לי ענו ואמרו זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פת אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל
As we continue to think about these freedoms that Rabbi Levy has encouraged us to think about, I now also encourage us to think about the joy that that freedom allows us to experience. The joy of being able to be together, to spend time with one another, to have the time of Shabbat that we get during the week. I know we are done with Purim and we're looking towards Pesach, but we're still technically in the month of Adar, and we're still commanded to experience joy in this month. And so let us experience that joy as we sing about the joy of Shabbat with Yismechu on page 162.
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג 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 עם מקדשי שבי עם מקדשי שבי כולם יספרו ויתענגו יספרו ויתענגו מטובך ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג חמדת ימים אותו קראת חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית זכר למעשה בראשית ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג. There's this beautiful reading that I always take a glance at before we enter into the Amidah. On page 165, you'll see this teaching from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the founder, one of the great teachers of modern-day Hasidism, who teaches every word of one's prayer should be like a rose that is picked from a bush. One gathers rose upon rose until a bouquet is formed and can be offered to God as a beautiful blessing. One of the things I often think about is how it never says it has to be the perfect rose. It has to be flawless or it has to be the most beautiful rose of the bush. It's just a rose that has come into bloom. And I think about that a lot in terms of our prayers. Oftentimes we might think, oh, we need to pray perfectly or know all the words or whatever it might be. But that's not the case. You just need to gather the prayers that you have to give in whatever particular moment. Sometimes we're not at our best, but prayer can still be a powerful tool, and we know that any prayer that we're able to give is accepted, even if it's not perfect, even if it's something from the heart, not from the book, whatever it might be. And so I want to encourage you to find the prayers that you have to give on this Shabbat as we move into the Amidah, our central text of our prayer service, beginning on page 164, as we all please rise. And we'll join together in the words on page 164, and then I invite you to continue praying silently, whether using the words and the texts from our tradition or those that originate within your own heart or your own soul, and we will come back together on page 180. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagin Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagin Tehilatecha. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagin Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagin Tehilatecha. We join back together on page 180 with the words of you there at Psalm.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. You are so. With our prayers still resonating within our hearts and our minds, with our bouquets of roses still bringing us light and gladness and joy, we now think of those who are experiencing a bit of darkness at this time, those who are in need of healing, whether it be healing of mind, healing of body, or healing of spirit. On this Shabbat, we're thinking of John Altschul, Aaron Aronow, Gary Ashland, Stephen Baird, Marion Barrick, Roberta Bennett, Joan Bergman, Elaine Blatt, Latrice Bloom, Louise Cantrell, Wayne Cantrell, Bertha Coleman, Michael Dyer, Tina Felipe, Harav Devora Masha, Batita Rezel, Robert Greenberg, Heidi Kebus, Seema Lehman, Elka Batchizkia, Addie Lelyveld, Peter Mackler, Larry Mendelson, Zachary Pierce, Vitaly Popov, Tammy Rabowski, Keith Rand, Ren Reback, Arlene Regan, Ivan Rosenberg, Richard Ross, Malka Ruchel, Bat Goldi, Gerald Salzman, Lowell Sullivan, Miles Sen, Karen Shanbrom, Edie Schumann, Henry Sommerfeld, Harriet Stein, David Suriel, Stephen Valentino, David Ben Herschel Vabasha, Philip Windsor, Eitan Wolf, and Doug Workman. To these names, we add those of your loved ones. If there's anyone that you're thinking of at this time for whom you wish to send healing energy and prayers, I invite you to share their name as my hand passes over you. And to those of you joining us online, I encourage you to share the name of your loved ones in the chat or in the comments section so we can take them into our heart with our own. Our healing prayer can be found on the insert of your Shabbat bulletin as we wish for, on the one hand, refuah shlema, complete and total healing, but also just a little bit of, just a step towards healing and the strength to go through the healing process as well. Mi sheberach avoteinu Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mi sheberach imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless
bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Mi sheberach avoteinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mi sheberach imoteinu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
So as Rabbi Levi mentioned, our Torah portion this week is Ki Tisa, and it features within it the pinnacle moment of the golden calf, as well as Moses smashing the tablets as his reaction. The Shabbat is also Shabbat Parah, another one of the special Shabbatot that we have around the holidays of Purim and Pesach. This special Shabbat, we read an extra bit of Torah from Numbers 19 about the Parah Adamah, the red heifer. As I was reading through these two different texts this week, I found myself trying to build a connection between these two moments, these two different cows. First, if we look at the story of the golden calf, this is a moment in Torah when the Israelites have been camped around Mount Sinai, and Moses has now been called up on top of the mountain to speak with God. God has called up Moses to give him detailed instructions on many tasks he has for the people of Israel. God tells Moses how to perform a census to count the Israelites. God tells him how to collect taxes, how to create tools for the priest to use with the tent of meeting. God explains how to engage with said tent and how the process will be for anointing the priests for all generations. God also throws in there that Moses needs to make sure to remind the Israelites about having to keep Shabbat and having to remember the covenant. And then he literally gives Moses tablets that it says, Kehoto ledabar oto bahar Sinai, contained within them all of the words that they spoke together about on Mount Sinai. There's a very long meeting with a full agenda. Meanwhile, while this was happening, the Israelites were becoming increasingly anxious, waiting for Moses to return. Rashi explains that the rabbis taught us that Moses had actually told the Israelites he would be returning after 40 days and even at a specific time of the day. When that time of day came and the day arrived and Moses had not yet returned, they believed that he had died and that they had been abandoned. Rashi tells us, though, that Moses actually did come back on the day he said he would. There was just a miscommunication about which day he actually left and when to start counting and what actually constituted noon. I see the whole situation as similar to everyone who will be worried this coming Sunday because we spring forward with daylight savings and everyone who's late for that reason. So, subtle reminder to change your clocks. Now, the Israelites, thinking that Moses might be dead, they go to Aaron and they say to him, "Come, make us a god who shall go before us. For that fellow Moses, the man who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what happened to him." Aaron says to them to gather all of their gold rings and bring them to him, which the Israelites do, and he creates for them a molten calf of gold, the golden calf. And upon seeing the golden calf, the Israelites exclaimed, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. The same phrase we're familiar with, the God of Israel Adonai, but here to the calf. Aaron then announced that the following day there would be a special festival, and then during that festival, they celebrated. They ate, they drank, they danced, and they offered sacrifices to the golden calf. Now, God, of course, notices this and is angry, very angry. So much so that Moses has to convince God to not blaze forth and completely destroy the people of Israel altogether. God tells Moses that he needs to quickly return to the Israelites, to which Moses rushes down the mountain, and we're told, quote, as soon as Moses came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, he became enraged, and he hurled the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. This sin of idolatry that is the moment of the golden calf is described by Moses as not just any sin, but a hata'ah gedolah, a large or great sin. Now, having committed this great sin, the relationship between God and the Israelites now is understandably a bit uncomfortable. And God actually tells Moses that God is afraid to even be amongst the people. God says, say to the Israelite people, you are a stiff-necked people. If I were to go in your midst for one moment, I would destroy you. Now then, take off your ornaments, and I will consider what to do with you. Clearly, God is upset. But we also know that the relationship is repaired. We are here, after all. So how then does Israel atone for this hata'ah gedolah, this great sin? One answer that our tradition gives us is in a midrash from Numbers Rabbah. It says that the parah adamah, the red heifer, atones for the sin of the golden calf. In the words of the midrash, the mother cleans up the mess of the child. This means that the red heifer here is the mother, since it's older, and is a full-grown cow, as opposed to the younger golden calf, the child. How exactly does the red heifer atone for the great sin of the golden calf? The ritual of the red heifer, we read at a point in the Torah, which is describing ritual purity. There are a variety of situations that can cause someone to become impure, including coming into contact with a dead body. Numbers tells us that the ashes of the red heifer, which is to be a red cow whole without blemish, could be used to purify such a person who has come into contact with a corpse. One of the reasons being ritually pure is important is because only people who are pure could eat from the Passover sacrifice, the Passover offering. And thus, this reading came to be done leading up to Pesach as a way of connecting with how in ancient times a public announcement reminded anyone who had become impure to purify themselves before making the Passover pilgrimage to Jerusalem to the temple for the sacrifice. So one connection between these two cows is that the purification ritual of the red heifer atones for the golden calf. The mother cleans up the mess of the child. However, Rabbi Eliezer Hirsch argues that there's an additional connection between these two moments that also attributes connection with Shabbat Parah. Rabbi Hirsch says that the Kabbalistic sources teach that the word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, begins and ends with the box letter Mem. And the word means narrow straits, because when we were slaves in Egypt, there was no way out. And Egypt now was a place that idolized death. And that experience of being in Egypt, of not having a way out, was necessary before the Jewish people could win genuine freedom and appreciate the life we found in the Torah we received after the Exodus. This is another reason why the Parah Adumah reminds us of Pesach. The impurity of death which pervaded Egypt became the path toward freedom we were given on Pesach. And that is how the red heifer is able to figuratively clean up the mess of the golden calf. Even a sin as monumental as the golden calf can be purified and thereby release the potential for life that emerges from the red heifer of death. Now, all of this explains why we have the special Shabbat and how Israel came to be redeemed from the golden calf. What it doesn't do, however, is really explain what we can learn from this today. After all, we no longer perform sacrifices, and we have already been forgiven for the great sin. Instead of sacrifices today, though, we have other forms of action, such as prayer and our own means of atonement. And while we may not be needing to atone for the idolatry of the golden calf, do we not still grapple with issues of idolatry today? When you look up a definition for idolatry, a common one you will find is the worship of someone or something other than God as though it were God. Someone or something other than God as though it were God. In his article on idolatry, Rabbi Michael Leo Samuel uses this definition to argue that things such as the pursuit of wealth, power, or fame in our world today can become idolatrous. And in today's social media-filled world, we all know it is not hard to find examples of this. So if we do find that our behavior turns toward idolatry, how are we to atone if we no longer can sacrifice the red heifer? And how would we even find a red cow whole, unblemished, as Numbers says we must? Yet actually, we don't have one yet. There is a place in Israel that keeps trying to make one. They haven't succeeded yet. Rabbi David Wolf Blank tells us that there's another way to understand the red heifer, though. He says, when you become aware that your nature is wild and you notice your flaws, the negative side of being a wild animal, your hard wiring, your problems with boundaries, your destructiveness and disorganization, also take into yourselves that you are as God made you, perfect in your present state at this moment, whole, unblemished. For Rabbi Wolf Blank, each of us is the red cow, animal and chaotic, but also perfect and whole, just as God made us. According to this, everything we need to combat idolatry is within ourselves. Rabbi Leo Samuel says, idolatry can occur whenever people fail to pay attention to the deeper human and moral issues that are at stakes. The message that I take from this Shabbat, where both of these stories coincide, where we read about both of these calves, is that it is a reminder for us to remember to not shy away from building these difficult relationships. That no sin is too great to overcome, and that being human is making mistakes. What it takes is the compassion and commitment to recognize when those mistakes have been made, and a commitment to do better after all. Shabbat shalom. Now we will invite up Yafa Hughes from our board to give us some announcements.
Thank you so much, Student Rabbi Salzman. I think now that every time I start cleaning up messes, I'm going to think of myself as a red heifer. It's a Southern thing. Shalom, Ani Yafa, Bruchim Habayim. I am a member of the Kol Ami Board of Trustees, and on behalf of the board, I wish everyone a good Shabbos. As always, thank you to Travis for audio and video. And of course, as always, thank you, Lisa Edwards, for your wonderful piano. Tomorrow, Saturday, March 11 at 1 p.m., we will gather to make another 500 lunches for the Hollywood Food Coalition here at the temple. Now, we hope you take this opportunity to feel the special Purim mitzvah of giving gifts to those in need by supporting the Hollywood Food Coalition and helping to feed folks across the city. Sunday, March 12, our book circle will gather online via Zoom at 4 p.m. Reading Dinners with Ruth, a memoir of Nina Totenberg. This Thursday, March 16 at noon, Lunch and Learn will welcome back poet and liturgist Alan Soloby to guest teach from his new book. This is a wonderful opportunity to learn with Alden, who will be live from Israel. So it'll be noon here, he'll be 10 o'clock p.m. his time. Be sure to mark your calendars for a special online class on March 22nd and the 29th, taught by our student rabbi, Frank. You won't want to miss it. Student rabbi, we don't have a time on that.
7 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay, 7 o'clock. Thank you. That's March 22nd and March 29th. Join us Saturday, April 1st at 10 a.m. for our Shabbat Awakening service. We will hear from our scholar in resident, Dr. Michael Ben Asher Siegel, professor of Talmud from Ben Gurion University of the Negev. Please register online. There will be a lunch. Lunch is $20. This is a do not miss opportunity. As always, we hope you keep up to date on all that is happening at Congregation Kol Ami by visiting our website at kol-ami.org. That's kol-ami.org. Keep looking for info about our upcoming classes, Passover Seder, and trip to the Reagan Library for Yom HaShoah. You can register for all of our online and in-person programs there, and you can also find more information. And while you are visiting our website, please be generous and give a donation to our synagogue to continue to support the holy work we do all year long. Toda Rabbah.
We're about to you, Yafa. Thank you. There we go. I'd like to see my Hebrew classes sinking in a little bit. Actually, a quick little correction for the announcements. The special lunch and learn on Saturday, April 1st will be free. There is no charge, so hope folks will take advantage of that. We will now move into the concluding portion of our service, beginning on page 586, as we all rise for Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu L'Shabeach. לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated.
Our thoughts now turn to those loved ones who are no longer with us to celebrate this evening. those taken from us in recent days or this time in years past. This evening, Congregation Kol Ami thinks of Maddie Spindler, grandmother of Marla Sandow, Kenneth Wade, stepfather of Dr. Sharon Siegel, Charlotte Frank, mother of Martin Frank, Benjamin Latofsky, grandfather of David Drochman, Herman Dorkin, uncle of Stephen Weiss, Greta Rosenblum, friend of John Altschul, member of Congregation Kol Ami, Carmela Rinaldi, grandmother of Russell Lyon, Louisa Julia Hubert, mother of Walter Hubert, Jacob Rand, father of Keith Rand, and Harry Romanoff, father of Dr. Neil Romanoff. All of these names are commemorated here with a plaque in our synagogue. We also think of Fred Michaels, brother of Dr. Nancy Cohen, Keith Cantrell, husband of Rob Cantrell, Stanley Schlesinger, brother of Ira Schlesinger, Brian Garfield, member of Congregation Kol Ami, Leo Egan, father of Jack Egan, Arnold Ernie Addison, father of Stephen Addison, Herbert Bernstein, grandfather of David Bernstein, Max Rosenblum, grandfather of Glenn Rosenblum, Darlene Iyer, sister of Deborah Pascaret, Leona Bander, mother of Ricky Bander, Betty Shanbrom, grandmother of Karen Shanbrom, Susan Rosette Edelman, mother of Martha Rosette, Billy Bunch, family friend of Matthew Rabin, Morris Peltzman, uncle of Bernie Goldberg, Ruth Bergman Rothenberg, aunt of Lynn Harrell, Jeb Stewart Robinson, friend of Glenn Rosenblum, Irene Margolin, aunt of Ricky Bander, Connie Cohen, aunt of Wendy Glenn. We also think of Keith Cantrell, Leona Bander, Marlene Brom, Herb Jacobson, Richard Frank, Louis Vencinelli, Dave Hall, Howard Romanoff, Greg Sonkin, Ruth Forster Williams, Reba Goldman, Michael Simental, Victor Escobar, Alvin Gross, Ernie Benson, Kathy Weiss, and Ellen Metzner, Janice Houghton-Levy, Anton Malley, Josh Kaplan, Don Hollis, Jason Thomas Lodge, Elaine Cohen, Maeve Eisenberg, Barton Kogan, Debbie Blatt, Stephen Shapiro, Kara Rosenthal, Marilyn Horowitz, Murray Blink, Stephen Hochstein, Ernie Sosnick, Stephen W. Wright, Scott Magid, Gloria Brown, Rosina Spitzer, and Lizzie Taylor. If there are any other names that you are thinking of this evening, I invite you to share them now. And if you're joining us online this evening, I encourage you to hold any names in your heart or share them with us in the chat. The words to our mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 598. Please rise. Yikadal
V'kadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach yutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei t'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudshah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran me'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, v'yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru Amen.
May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Our concluding song for tonight comes from Psalm 16, Shiviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid, may you always be before me. But this is a little bit of a different version. You can find the lyrics on the insert in your Shabbat bulletin. Shiviti Havaya Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Havaya Lenegdi Tamid. Ah
will enjoy a oneg outside together. So first, we'll say the Motzi. Baruch
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, Shabbat shalom. Baruch atah b'voecha, Baruch atah b'tzeitecha. You were blessed, you were whole and unblemished in coming in here, and so shall you remain as you go out. May we spread the light and the blessing and the warmth and the energy that we've built up here out into the world. Bring it with us into this next week and far beyond. And let us say it together. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Thank you for joining us.